Hey everyone, welcome back to Tuesday Tea with me, Alisha Bowker Mudrock. Today we have not Juliet, but Lauren with us. She's borrowing her daughter's Zoom account, so don't be confused by the name on the bottom. But Lauren is a brilliant Pilates instructor, dance background. She lives in Miami, but originally from the DC area. She is a mom to also a very talented young lady and travels a lot, woman after my own heart. But she is just a beautiful human, and I feel sad that I was not able to stay in Miami longer to get to continue to even spend more in-person time with her. But the connection that we did make through the Pilates studio is strong, and so she's not getting rid of me. So she's here with us today. We're gonna just dive in and talk about this theme that we've been talking about this whole month of elevating our life, right? But really getting into the nitty-gritty and maybe the messy of like, but what does that mean? And how does that look? And it's not always beautiful. It's not always pretty. It's not always consistent. And we're just kind of going to go to all the places. And Lauren's going to share some of her own thoughts and personal stories. I'll dive in with some of mine, and we'll take some good tips and takeaways at the end. And then we'll see you next week. So I'll turn it over to you, Lauren, if you want to introduce any other part of yourself that I missed, or just kind of opening with that question. What comes to mind when you think of this like phrase elevated life? Where would you start?
Yeah, so you gave me this topic, and I literally was like, forget it. But so I will preface that maybe I'm definitely still a work in progress with this. I think we all are, but I'm getting somewhere. So I can show you the path taking thus far,
Yeah.
and maybe we try to get there together, I guess. I think I was kind of figuring out too, in your, sorry if I keep looking over this way, by the way, I'm looking at you on the screen anyways. It mentioned a lot of habits or routines or scheduling, if you will. And I think, especially now, especially if you're a parent too, or just all of us with multiple roles, a lot of that goes out the window. Anything pop up and, you might have the most perfect routine and set in place, but if something pops up, it's like, and then you can get really frustrated. So I think kind of living an elevated life is kind of for me now evolved into mastering the mindset. So yeah, so it's like, okay. And how are you going to adjust from there? And then, you still have all this stuff playing out. You still, maybe you figured out your perfect career, your perfect schedule or whatnot, but, the world's still there and if stuff pops up, like you can kind of handle it better. So I think that's kind of the big takeaway. And then from there, I mean, there was little teeny, branches I could go off from there, but
no, I like that. I think that's so important because I'm just even thinking of my morning today. I woke up and I had lots of email. Like it just feels like everything came at me at once. Like I had my day planned and I was like, cool, it's gonna be like a nice, pretty easy Monday. And then had to switch a few things, got some emails about some other stuff that I like kind of had to attend to, but only had so much time, like rushing to get ready, figuring stuff out. So it could have felt overwhelming in the sense I could have just shut down and been in a bad mood and been like, this day is going to be terrible. But I think that mindset piece is so important. And we keep coming back to it because while it felt a little more frantic than maybe I anticipated Monday feeling, it was still doable. And the routine kind of didn't matter, like you're saying, but the mindset of how, okay, like problem solve, approach this, take it step by step, what prioritize, what can I leave behind to then get to what I need to do, right? And so I think that that's a great foundation that you're bringing up. It's all about the mindset because life's gonna life. It's gonna happen. A lot we can't control, but we can control how we respond to it and how we interact with those unpredictable, unplanned moments, perhaps.
exactly.
Where do you find you excel at this most, and where is that like hardest for you?
Again, I'm kind of in the discovery phase of this whole mindset thing. I think
Okay.
polite helps. I think again, mental health, like counseling, that's where you come in. I think a lot of that helps as well, and just trying to keep things in perspective. Again, it's just kind of learning along the way. I also started a yoga training recently, so that's a very good outlet. So I think with anyone, either A, it could be, therapy or religion or meditation, or for me right now, it's this yoga practice where we're learning. It's almost like a religion, but like a philosophy, and it's just a lot of like, it's definitely changing the way that you think of things. And again, you can't change the world, but you can change the way that you see it. So I think also too for me, kind of elevating myself was kind of redefining my priorities.
Mhm.
So it kind of started back before my daughter. Long story, I was like in public relations. I was in the corporate world. Actually, even before that, I was very big into dance, and I wanted to maybe major in it. And then I don't know what I was thinking. It was the '90s. It was cool to work hard and not have a life. I was like, no, no, I want to be in corporate and I need something that makes me a lot of money and like, so gives me stability. So I threw dance out the window. I still did it on the side for fun, but I never pursued it. And then I went into this corporate world and yeah, it was, cool and fun, but it was like, I just burned out. It was miserable. And my mom was always telling me, I really see you opening your own dance studio or like working with people, like teaching dance. Like, I will never teach. Like, I just want to do like,
I'm a dancer, not a teacher.
yeah. I was like, you're like, whatever, mom. So fast forward many years later, I was still in corporate world and I was like, I'm going to quit. I'm going to open up my own thing, maybe a clothing boutique. I don't know. So I went to business school. I was about to graduate. I got pregnant. That's another decision. What am I going to prioritize? So for me, I
Right.
chose, okay, I'm going to see how this motherhood thing goes out. Let's take a
Give
breather.
it a try.
Yeah.
Old college try.
So I somehow got sucked back into public relations. I was doing my own thing, so which was nice. I had some autonomy, but again, it just still wasn't working. So I was teaching a lot or taking a lot of workout classes at Equinox, and doing a lot of bar. And I was like, you know what? Like, I really enjoy doing this. Why don't I teach it and actually do? So that was, and then eventually from bar, I got to Pilates, and here I am. And then my mom, fast forward later, so she's like, I told you so. So
Mothers always know.
dancing, but I still get that creative
Yeah.
outlet, if you will, as far as, setting up the movements, routines, and all that. So I think that was a big part. Again, it's so cliche, but like kind of try to evolve what you love into what you do. I mean, these responsibilities aren't going to go away, but if we can kind of match them with things that are passions for us, why not, right? And for some of us right now, that might require a big pivot, and it's scary. You know how it is with the Pilates training. It's very intense. It's 500 hours at least. I mean, that's minimum. It's probably 7 really said and done. And it's overwhelming, but like you're gonna get there and like have that faith. So I think that taught me to, again, I'm doing this yoga and it's very overwhelming and it's very intimidating. But having undergone that initial pivot, now the change seems a little less scary.
Yes.
It's still scary, but it's like, I'm gonna get through this because I've done it before. So again, it's just adjusting that mindset.
And I think you bring up a great point because the idea of knowing what you're going to prioritize, sort of like understanding your values and your goals, because someone else might say, well, Lauren, then don't do it. Like if it's too overwhelming, like aren't you doing enough? Right. But there's a reason you want to push yourself out of your comfort zone. There's a reason you want to add another thing and like get into that scary unknown place again, because you're not in a bad place. Life is good, but you want to elevate. You want to grow a little more. You want to push a little further. You want to broaden your knowledge base, your offerings in the future, things like that, right? And so if we want to never grow, then we can stay comfortable and we don't have to necessarily get too in the weeds with this like negotiating and like really being clear on our values and our goals and things. But to me, that sounds terrible and like a really missed life opportunity, right? Versus we have to renegotiate what our priorities are. We have to renegotiate our goals, renegotiate our values in different seasons and at different times of our life. And that's important and that's a good thing. And when we do that, and when we have that strong foundation and we have that mindset of like what we're doing and where we're going, then everything else that feels hard or tricky isn't necessarily not hard or tricky, but it's doable because it funnels into this really solid foundation that we have. But if that's not there, then it would be super easy to just like fall apart or get stuck or get lost or melt down or quit because we're not really sure why we're doing the thing that's pushing us out of our comfort zone, because none of us
Yeah.
like to be uncomfortable, right? But if I understand, like I come to a Pilates class and it's not comfortable, but I understand I'm doing it for certain reasons. One, it will be over in 45 to 50 minutes. Two, it will make me feel better in my body. Three, I needed to move. Four, like whatever my goals are. So I'll show up. If I have no buy-in, I'm not doing that uncomfortable thing 3 times a week ever again if I'm not like clear on the why and what it's doing, and I don't have that connection to it. So it sounds
Yeah.
like for you, those different pivots you made, you had to sit sometimes in the unknown or the messy part of it, but you always came back to like, okay, my kid is my priority. I love being creative, so how can I pull that back in and movement be part of it? But I still need to make money, and I still need to like, I can't just have an expensive hobby. Like, oh, I wanted to feel important, so you went to corporate America for a while, and that felt like it gave you power and meaning, and it gave you what you needed at that time. But then it wasn't the thing anymore, right? And so I think that it just shows it's not always a linear path, but every step was so essential to where you are today. Like without all of those, I don't know if this is the spot you'd be in right now.
Very, very true. Yeah. Yeah. You may not see it, but at the end of the day, everything was meant to happen the way it was. But
Hmm.
so hard to see it at the time, but you get there.
It's so hard. No, I think about that all the time in my own life. There's like these, I guess you could argue any moment was a moment that if that hadn't happened, like would the next thing happen? But I have like a few very specific ones. Like right after I graduated grad school and I was living in New York, I had like decided I didn't want to go back to California. I wanted to stay. And so it was Labor Day. Is that the Monday holiday? Yeah, Labor Day. And my friend and I were like out and we were on our way to a bar somewhere in a cab, and then those people canceled. So we're like, just stop here, like totally out of movie, right? Like, just stop on this corner, but it's New York, so you can stop on any corner and there's something there, a bar or something. And we got out, we walked into this like bar restaurant, started talking to the waitress. Long story short, I ended up getting a job there. Never worked in a restaurant. She's like, you have a master's degree. Not hard. You can like figure this out. So I got a job. That job is the reason I was able to stay in New York, right? Like I needed to start working straight away. And I was like, I don't want to do social work right away. Like I want to break. So I got this job and it was like, hey, stop the cab, get out, got a job a week later. And and I think it's sometimes those moments I can think of quite, hi Kitty. It's okay. They love pets. But I can think of quite a few where it wasn't necessarily what I had planned or what I had spent all this energy like creating. It just kind of happened and I saw the door and I took it. But I think that happens when you are living in alignment with yourself, right? Like when you're really on the right path and you really know yourself, then those doors open and you know when to take them. I think sometimes we get too caught up over planning things
Oh yeah.
and we get in our own way, right? Like, have
Or
you
it's too late.
noticed that?
By the
Say
time
what?
you're thinking about pulling the trigger, it's too late.
Yeah, maybe the door's closed already.
I've been guilty.
What's been helpful for you, or can you think of a time in your life when you've just sort of like stepped through a door and or overplanned and it closed on you?
I think the dance thing for sure. Um, yeah, I overanalyzed it, and by the time I really thought about it, I was like, oh, I can somehow figure this out, and I just kept focusing on the other way, the business side, if you
Yeah,
will, and it was too late, but it worked out. I still use
yeah,
it, and I live vicariously through my daughter who likes dancing. So
yes, yes. She seems like she's a great dancer from the little I've seen of her on your socials.
but I think the other thing is a couple of things, is realizing too that I love it when people say give 110%. It's like, okay, well, there is no 110%. That doesn't exist.
Right.
And while we all want to do our best at everything, again, that doesn't exist because there's only that piece of pie. So just kind of a little bit of acceptance too,
Mhm.
um, on what's being okay with that. So you can't be 100% of this and 100% of this. You are gonna, so again, find your priorities
Yeah.
and get 100% of that piece that you can give, but you can't be 100% at everything. So be okay with the fact that, okay, maybe you are going to miss, I am going to miss a couple things. Can I pick her up every day? No. Am I going to miss a few things here or there? Yes. And I need to be okay with that. If I'm not, then I need to reprioritize and take less classes. That's kind of that
Right.
balance, and kind of figure it out that way. But once you set it, figure out that ratio that you're comfortable with.
Mhm.
I don't teach as many, would I love to be like Pilates teacher extraordinaire and teach all this time? Yes, but I've, especially right now, she's a tween and she's still kind of like saying, I'm like holding on by like a
Still kind of like,
no more classes. Like I'm not doing it. I would love to say again, this is the other thing, another, segue. I'd love to say yes, but
yeah,
it's not gonna happen for now.
yeah.
So
No, I think that's a great,
maybe
great point. I always like to think of that visual, like we all are just one pie chart and our roles have to split oh, there's only the 100%, and then each role gets a percentage. And different seasons of life, those roles will change, right? Like mom, when your kid's a brand new baby, is like 70% because you literally have to be physically there doing so much for that period of time. And mom still is big, but it might get smaller as she gets bigger because you're not hands on, like literally there every second. She can get herself dressed, she can like go do things in the world, right? And so you have some room to go be Pilates instructor. Sometimes you can, go be Pilates instructor, go be this, go be that. But I think it is often remembering, no, we don't have 110% of us, and you can't be 100% a mom and 100% a worker and 100% a wife and 100% this. Like something has to give. And it doesn't mean though that that's a bad thing. I think honestly it's freeing when I can be real. Like I can only show up this much, you get this much of my space, you get this much of my time. Then I can show up to that 30% of me way more authentically with more energy
yeah.
than if I'm trying to just be like 100 everywhere. I'm really burnt out and I'm burning the candle at both ends, and it shows up and people are gonna notice too, right?
It helps you enjoy it all more if you're able to, if you don't feel so burnt out or you don't get resentful, like you're doing what again, if I gave 100% to Pilates but trying to be 100% mom, I'm going to start getting resentful in Pilates. So if
Exactly.
I cut the pie, but
Mhm.
like enjoy that smaller piece.
Mhm. Mhm. And like we've been saying, nothing's forever. So as she even gets even bigger, and becomes even more independent, which I always do this, and then mom's like, "Don't say that," but like one day, hopefully, she's not going to live with you forever. I mean, that's generally the goal, right? That she'll do her own thing or get some of her own, like her own life and passions. Then there's not that you're ever not her mom or ever like drop anything to be there for her, but like you have more space to like have new little baby projects like, oh, I want to grow this or I wanted to do that. And there's a little more room, energy, and space to do so, right? And so everything is kind of this seasonal, um, fluid negotiation. And I think that that keeps coming back to that theme we've been talking about over these last few weeks, and even in future, or not future, well, probably in the future, but past topics and weeks of just like meeting ourselves where we're at and working with what we have to maximize what's already here. We already know everything we need to know to live an elevated life. We already have all the resources and tools we need to have in this moment to live the elevated version of this life, right? And so instead of constantly thinking we don't have it or we're looking in all the wrong areas, how can we come back to like where we are in that mindset piece and just be present and then make that plan from there? And I think that that is what our media and the quickness of stuff is really distracting from. It's always on to the next, what else? It is that like gazing at everything else and like forgetting where we're at and what we do have. It's all the what we don't have and what we need to be and what we need to get better at. And that makes us feel really defeated. And I believe keeps us quite stuck, right? Versus, no, I already have a lot. I already know a lot. I want to know a little more here. I want to grow a little bit here. I want to maximize this. But it's not reinventing the wheel. It's just building off of what already exists and the incredible foundation that I definitely already have, no matter kind of where anyone listening to this is starting
Mhm. No, that makes great sense.
from. Excuse me. Sorry, I'm getting over a cold. Um, what what do you think was the like aha moment of of saying yes, like I'm going to do this yoga teacher training, like since that's the newest thing you're kind of like endeavoring on, like what kind of like clicked for you of like I'm taking that opportunity, like this is the thing, this is the time.
Um, it was time. I think got Pilates certification 6 years ago, and there's continuing education, especially if you want to keep certain designations and
Mhm.
whatnot. But again, I've developed into a nerd over the years, and I like to keep learning. But again, you keep pushing it off and pushing it off. It's like, you know what, you gotta like commit. Um, but I originally had signed up to do it this past January, but again, that piece of the pie wasn't really available. So I did postpone it, and I felt terrible. And I was like, oh, like I'm not saying yes. And then I almost felt like I was being uncommittal or coming across that way, which is another hard thing because you want to commit, but then there are some times where you do realize that it might not be the right time.
Yeah.
So ultimately, fortunately, I did end up doing that. It was a good decision, and now we're starting. I just started. I mean, this fast. I'm
Right.
like on all the philosophies, so I don't know anything yet. But I'm getting like in my head. I'm like, oh wow, there's a lot to learn here.
Uh-huh.
But then again, hence why all this set stuff came to mind. It's like it really does. Gosh, if you could just, you can really talk yourself out of anything or into any
Or into anything.
good or bad. If
Yeah.
you're in a situation, I mean, you can talk yourself into flipping it and making it a positive one or vice versa. But so
No.
yeah, again, everything falls into place as it should. I think kind of have the faith in that too, like trust in yourself.
Mhm.
Again, if you're aligned in your foundation and your values and your core, um, and you're doing it from that headspace, and I think, wherever you're going, like just have faith in that.
Yeah.
That whatever path is, like it might seem yes or no, but just keep having faith in that it'll get there. It'll show itself in some way.
And honestly, very, very rarely is the choice we make so devastating or detrimental or an impossible thing to take back. Like, sure, there are a couple out there, but very few of us are making those types of choices most likely. And so, even if you take the longer path to get there, it doesn't mean that the path suddenly becomes unavailable to you to like that future destination. It might be more scenic, it might be a little more complicated, it might be a little more challenging, it might be longer, but it doesn't mean that it can't all keep ending up back to the places that you were hoping to get to. And I think we get that all or nothing mindset too much where we are like, oh, I don't make this like if I don't do this in January, it's not gonna happen. Everyone's gonna, like, okay, look, we're 9 months later and it's happening and it's actually a better time. So like you're getting there. It just the path was a little longer or got put on pause or you took like a, picnic by the lake for a minute before you got back up and went on it. Right. So it's like it's possible. It just I think we like put too much stake. Not to say like decisions aren't important and that we don't. Some doors do close. Like sometimes no, like you're not going to be the professional rockette, like at this age, at this space in life, like whatever that dance dream might have been. And that, yes, like that did close in that way, but movement and dance is still part of your life in multiple
Mhm.
ways. And so it did not fully close, right? Like your path to what dance and movement in your world looks like just changed form, but that path is still there. Through your daughter, through your Pilates classes are like a dance class, right? Like I said this on last week's, my New Orleans Pilates instructor was on and I was telling her that the three most influential Pilates instructors I've had, being Kristen, Hannah, and you all have a background in dance and ballet. And I was like, I just have a thing for you guys. You guys really interesting, creative classes, like good transitions, because you all are dancers. And so I think that though is huge. Like it's still coming across. You're still sharing that. You're still teaching and spreading that beauty of movement to people. It just like isn't maybe on a stage or I don't know, however you imagine maybe your dance career would look like one day. Um, but like if we step back, I think we don't put stuff in again that black and white category that there's a lot of gray. like how beautiful that we often aren't really closing doors as the ones that we wouldn't open like as hard as we think, and that there is still ways to take those roots and the things we know and the things we learn and the things we love and make it all kind of fit into this rich life in whatever space that we're in. It's just being adaptable, being creative, and having that mindset of being open to working with ourselves versus fighting against or shoving us into little boxes that we don't like fit in at that particular time, you know.
Yeah, like you said, drop expectations. It's not good. It may
It's
not be,
hard.
but yeah, yeah, but it could be a whole different, yeah, like you said, path. And that
Mhm.
could be good. It could be way better, different than your expectation, but
Yeah, yeah. No, so true. I mean, honestly, if you ever told me I was gonna have lived in the states of Louisiana or Kentucky or even Florida, like I would have like a million back when I was a California girl, I'd been like, huh, yeah, right. Where are half those states, right? And then I met my husband in Louisiana, my now husband, like, and why was I there? Who knows? But I met him, right? Like Kentucky was one of our favorite places that we ever lived. Like we have this beautiful home now in South Florida. Like sometimes when you aren't open and you are too rigid, you can miss some really beautiful things. It doesn't mean
Mhm.
life will be bad. I think it's just like it puts you in such a tight box when sometimes life is bigger than what we think we know. Imagine that. And there's a lot still to learn. Like you said, you're always wanting to learn more. And I think a lot of us lose that. And I think it's a beautiful thing to hold on to of being a lifelong student. Not necessarily in a classroom per se, but just like learning and growing and being open instead of so small and closed-minded because one, it breeds hate, but two, it just like we're not living that elevated life then, right? Like we're really like the ceiling's low and it's just not as rich and beautiful and like exciting as it could be if you
I
aimed a
think
bit higher.
the biggest is don't get frustrated when life doesn't happen the way you wanted it, but be open to see where it takes you or learn from it.
Yeah,
It's yeah, just really easier said than done. But
of course.
um be like, okay, this is it. It's showing me a different way, and I'm gonna learn it. I'm gonna change, and I'm gonna grow from this way, hopefully, in one way, shape, or form. Even if it's small, it could be the smallest thing. But yeah, I think that's where we get stagnant is when we start getting frustrated when things don't go the way that we had originally seen them. But
Right.
you know, we've only seen what we've seen. We haven't
Right.
seen what we've seen. So
Right.
instead of getting frustrated, it's showing us a different viewpoint.
And be open to it. Because who knows what's on the other side of that, right?
Yeah.
I love
At
it.
least try to have that kernel in the back of your head, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Like it
obviously
still
all
a work in progress. Yeah.
yeah, right. I was gonna say, obviously, if all these things were so easy, I would be out of my job as a therapist, and we'd all be like very evolved humans just living our best lives. But it doesn't mean they're unattainable. It doesn't mean that they're impossible. And I think having these conversations and acknowledging like how hard it is, but also sharing wins and just getting to talk about it lifts each other up. And we're not meant to do this life alone. Like we're very tribal as humans are meant to live in tribes. We're meant to be with people in community. So finding those people who also support your visions and dreams. I'm sure you have a tribe around you who helps so you can go to these classes and that your kid will still get cared for and you still can like keep your marriage going strong and whatever else, right? Like you have other folks in your world who are helping you with your dreams just like you help them with theirs. And I think that that's important as well as that we use that support, we connect to it, and that we really, again, like you said, like learn to trust ourselves, set aside expectations, and are really open to what's ahead and what exciting things might come. Any
Thank you.
last thoughts, like takeaways, anything that you want to leave folks with as like a statement,
A
sentiment?
statement.
I don't know, I thought.
Um, Again, okay, you know what? I love this. My mom, I guess her brother always sends her motivational quotes, and she sent me one. This one really stuck with me and kind of goes with what we've been talking about. And I'm going to botch it, but I'm going to give you the long and short of it. To the of, um, there's these little things called glimmers, and
Mhm.
they're small, but once you recognize them, they kind of like put you at ease and they kind of help you see, like, okay, there's another way, or it's even maybe just like a little glimmer of hope or a little glimmer of peace or a little
Yeah.
glimmer of something, just puts you at ease and can help you when you're in those moments of frustration or anger or whatever the heck it is. And then once you see those glimmers, once you recognize them, they become more and more apparent to you. So again, kind of like once you see it, then you start, it grows and grows and grows. And then you hopefully you start realizing more and more like all that's around you that could be useful. And yeah, I always like that.
No, I love that. I love that. The power of positive psychology. We're very good at seeing the bad and the negative, but when we train our brains to also look for the good, the glimmers, the positives, we naturally start to seek them out and see them more frequently, which is important because both are always there. There's always hard stuff going on and there's always good stuff going on. They're not always equal, but it's important to kind of like keep that perspective on both. So
Mm-hmm.
thank you so much for that. I loved it. Well, so much good stuff to think about. I think that this was a really helpful conversation on this topic because it just reminds us that it is messy. It's not perfect, but it's the work is where the good stuff happens, and it's worth it. So thank you so much for being here today. I will definitely see you guys all next week and have a wonderful rest of your week. See you guys later.
Thank you.